Hi, teammates. My name is Sean J. McCall, and as usual, I'm your host for the Eurostep. And I've got a very interesting guest for tonight. There's always a thing about agents. You want to dispel myths about agents, and a lot of people that I consult, they have a lot of questions about agents. So I'm really happy to have my guest on here. And yeah, before we start, please, if you are watching, please click the comment section down at the bottom if you'd like to ask a question for Milan. If not, then if you don't want everybody to see it, then you can click the question mark with the speech bubble at the bottom right. And only I see it, but I check it. I'll see it pop up, and I'll check it and ask your question as the thing goes on. So I am ready, actually. We are ready to start. Milan, I'm going to bring you in now. Invite. Uno, I see you, buddy. How you doing? Let's see. Did not work. There we go. There we go. There you go. Milan.
Hey,
How you doing, man?
Sean.
Good that you could take a little bit out of your day and chat with me a little bit. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
What you got going on after our interview?
I'm in Munich right now. I'm gonna be at the Euroleague game later on between Bayern and Monaco.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty interesting.
You got players there? You
Yeah.
don't have to name names. I'm just asking if you got players.
Quite a few.
Okay.
Quite a few.
Good. So, yeah, man, let's just kick it off. I want this to be, I have a bunch of questions, but I want it to be more of a talk than me running off questions. So just say what you have to say. Don't worry about me cutting you off or something like that. And yeah, let's get right into it. So tell me about your basketball background. Were you a player, or were you one of those guys that looked from the sideline and analyzed things and thought, I like to change the game in another way?
No, my background is actually a bit messed up. I used to play football, soccer.
Okay.
As you like to call that, and I played it all up till I was 18. Opted against playing in the lower divisions. Wasn't just good enough for the first two leagues here in Germany. And then, well, yeah, I decided I just wanna study, and I had the opportunity actually to go to the States, which I wanted to do. And then I literally signed my letter of intent and everything. And 3 days before I was supposed to fly over, I got cold feet, and I stayed in Germany and well, lived my life happily there.
How old were you then?
18. 18. Yeah, I just finished high school, and here in Germany, and everything was pretty new. Didn't have the guidance that today I'm trying to provide, and yeah, it was a pretty exciting time. But now I would say 15 years later, I don't regret decisions that I make in my life. But yeah, what would have been, could have been.
That's crazy. So back when you were playing soccer, football, were you interested in basketball, or was that something really outside of your thought process?
Yeah, no, I'm in general, I always consider myself a complete sports geek, and I'm always up to date with what's happening in other sports, and even in my free time, I watch a lot of sports. I believe I drive everybody crazy around me in my free time. And my brother used to play, not professionally, and then he went on to coaching. So I was always connected to basketball, and I actually started off being an agent. It was offered to me right when I started university. So I was like, okay, I always wanted to stay in the sports and do something long term. I always wanted to be a scout or somebody who was working as a sports director. And then eventually I ended up being some kind of a player manager and scout in the beginning, and evolved. And after 4 years, I actually wanted to quit because the agency I was working for in football wasn't the real deal. And at that time, how destiny wanted it, I met my good friend that died last year, Milan Nikolić. And yeah, the idea was that the agency I was working for wanted to go cross sports, and yeah, I don't know. That's how we met at Mola. Those guys met at the wedding 2 weeks before that. Ademola was in the media because of Dennis Schroeder at that time, because Dennis was about to get drafted by the Hawks, and also being a Berlin guy. So that's how the contact happened. And then, I tried to help Ademola's nephew, who was playing football at that time, or soccer. And that's how Ademola and I got close. He wanted to know how my job was going. And basically, I was unhappy at that time and about to quit and do something university related. And Ademola offered me a job pretty much out of nowhere. And that's how I ended up in basketball. Pretty much, well, it's my 12th year now. So quite a long time.
That's interesting. It's usually those situations where you meet somebody at the right time, where it's kind of like fate, you know.
I agree.
And it totally takes you in a total different direction than what you thought. And those are usually the best things that you're not expected to do.
I agree.
You know? Was it difficult for you to switch, because soccer is king in Europe, right? So was it difficult for you to switch when you switched agencies or switching sports to get the thought process of a basketball player? Because I'm sure it's a little bit different.
Yes. Well, first of all, to get into what you just said about fate, as a matter of fact, my mom and Ademola's mom used to work together in Berlin, like 20-something years ago.
But you didn't know until later, probably, right?
No, I knew it back then at the time, because Ademola was obviously a big player back in the day.
Right.
And his mom wanted to get rid of some old stuff from Alba Berlin and UNC. So I got my cousins who are taller and stronger than me back in Serbia, all with Alba and UNC stuff running around. But to come back to your original question with the thought process, I believe in sports in general, you have things that cross over, and especially in team sports, there is game intelligence, what I like to call. So you recognize the situation, you recognize what is going on, and based on that, you make the decision. I didn't have difficulties per se when I started in realizing which players are smart or smarter players and which are less smart. I had more of issues to realize that the athletics you need to play basketball, especially in a high level, are completely different than in football. Usually in football, you need more stamina. There are not many sprints throughout a 90-minute game. But as you know, you played yourself. In basketball, it's more or less completely sprinting.
Right.
In football, also, you don't need to have lateral movement. And that was something that I like. If I would show you my notes that I had back in the day, like when I started, and what players I hyped and which I didn't, it was pretty awful, I must admit. But now I believe I'm at the point now where I can evaluate talent pretty well.
So would you say that the kind of like the evaluation of the athletic was the most difficult part you had in the changeover from soccer agent to basketball agent?
Yeah. Especially looking at younger guys, without naming names, I don't want to shame anybody, but I was seeing kids at age 15 playing the JBL, the under 16s here in Germany, the highest level, just going off, dropping 40 and 25, and I thought, wow, it's the best thing, without actually realizing that, well, they're grown out. They literally look like a 25-year-old man, and there's nothing going to happen. And fast forward a couple of years, those guys are Pro B Max, which is third division. So this was something as part of my evolution that I had to learn throughout the time, that I believe everybody has to learn that doesn't have a player background. I believe it's completely different when somebody like you played and coached and then comes like me. I mean, I didn't have that experience, and basically everything I learned was through somebody teaching me or through some life experience.
I think it's interesting what you said, that like, okay, if I was to jump in the agent business, I would kind of understand a little bit more. To some extent, I would say that's true, but I think you have a unique advantage over someone who was a player, because you're not fixed on certain things. I think you can be more open about things. Yes, you have to learn certain things that I wouldn't have to learn, but I think it would be much harder. And I experienced this when I started coaching. A quick story, like when I started coaching, I had to take the view of a coach, and I only had the view of a basketball court on the court and not from the outside looking in. So my first weeks of practice when I was coaching Jena, I was literally on the court and I was getting in the way of the players because my view was still there, right? And it took a couple of weeks before I realized, hey, I've got to move to the side, or I've got to move to the back. I've got to change my real vision, my point of view vision, so that I can understand from my now perspective as a coach and not as a player. But I think for someone like you come in without these expectations or these things where I would expect somebody to make this movement and might think, okay, he's crap because he's not making that movement. But you say, okay, you can see it a little bit different. I think that's pretty cool, actually, that you came from a place that wasn't basketball.
I mean, in the beginning of my career, I can tell you it was something that I was attacked for. Like people used it as an example for my knowledge or my lack of knowledge and experience. But I believe through time, by talking to coaches, to decision makers, to scouts, I just learned different ways of looking at the game. And like, again, you've had different parts on how you look at the game, but a player sees the game completely different than a coach, than a decision maker, and then a scout. Because usually when they watch a game, they focus on particular things. If I take myself now at a point, usually when I go to a game, I don't get surprised. Even if it's an under 14 game, I usually already have some intel and some video that I looked at. So I'm particularly going to watch one or two guys. And that's what most decision makers do. But for a coach, as you yourself coach, when you have a game, you have 12 or maybe nowadays 15, 16 guys running around. So it's a big difference than from that part. So sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. I
was going to ask you this later, but you kind of brought it up right now. You just mentioned how you even if you're scouting somebody that's in under 14, how low do you go, or how young do you go now to scout? Because of course you want to be first on the scene, right? You want to discover the untalent or the hidden jewels, things like that, before another agent possibly does it. And the importance over the years, especially in German basketball, but in Europe period, is leaning more towards native players and away from imports. So how young are you starting to scout now?
Well, first of all, like, scouting is always a thing. You can look at guys, but what I also like to tell parents and kids those age, like, be a kid, enjoy the time being a kid, because there's going to be a time. I think the one part I really don't enjoy about this business is that the age barrier for players gets drawn down and down and down. And now we're talking about kids who are 14 and somebody decides, oh, this guy's is going to be the next big thing, but you don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years.
There's so many variables.
Exactly. And just like injury, family situation, sickness, interest in general, interest shifts. I've seen guys who just lost interest in playing the game. They decided they want to study or they want to party and be with girls. Everything is fine, but I believe you should allow people, especially our kids in that age, to be kids. And the game in Europe is obviously a bit different. In Germany and France, actually in most countries, you need to have homegrown players. And this is not just like we as an agency, but also our competition. Everybody has to look for the best guys, and obviously every agency has their own corporate identity. Everybody has a different way on what they look for in a player. For us, the idea is we're trying to go with the best guys. We try to evaluate them, and obviously at that age, it's often a gut call. You're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. I haven't met a person who has been right 100% of the time. And I believe the goal, especially in scouting or talent evaluation, is to keep your mistakes to the minimum, to their minimum, as low as possible.
When you're evaluating the talent of a player in, let's say, under 16, here is JBBL. That's the highest level here.
NBBL,
which is actually
JBBL is under 16,
yeah. And so if you're scouting someone in that age, when do you make the decision to speak to the child or speak to the parents? Do you watch from afar for a certain time period? When do you say, okay, now I have to be active and introduce myself and things like that?
So usually I think the time is about age 15 when they're about to turn 16.
Right.
That's the barrier. And honestly, I don't want to go lower because of what I just said. I believe everybody should enjoy being a kid. And I think at that age, this is basically the last step where you enjoy not just basketball, but sports in general by its purity.
Right.
Because after that, interest kicks in. If it's interest from clubs, from decision makers, from agents, from parents, whatever it is, interest kicks in. But at that age, it's just pure love for the game. So
right.
I've had one exemption over my career when I went younger, and that kid was 14. But that's it. So usually I go the route, I talk to the parents. I try, and even with kids who are signed with us, I want them to let them know, like, everything that your parents think you need to know, they will let you know. And I prefer talking to the parents for most parts of the things until the time the kids turns 18. Or we have to speak about a professional contract or going to college or whatever it is. But yeah, I try to keep the communication with the kids on a bare minimum in order for them to be kids. Enjoy school and the game.
You mentioned that you're 12 years in now. How has the agent game changed in those 12 years? Every job evolves, right? How has the agent game evolved for you?
I think for me personally, with social media and everything being pretty accessible, from my experience, there's a lot of people who trying to be online scouts, online agents, who trying to get jobs with clubs, with NBA teams, with colleges through posting their opinion on Twitter, which I don't per se have a problem with, but there's a lot of BS running around. And from my experience, there are quite a few people who have some power in this business who value unknowns people opinion too much. And just because I write something about somebody on the internet doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Right.
I mean, there's proof of work doesn't, like, it's getting less and less. And I feel like there's a lot of people. I'm not against it. I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't have a basketball background, but I believe there's more and more people with no basketball backgrounds kicking into the business lately, which is okay, because I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with bad consulting. That is my problem. When people make decisions based on their own gain, and it's normal. Yes, agents, myself, I make money out of this, and that's fine. Players know it. It's not a secret. But I believe you have to separate your own interest. Otherwise, you're not doing your job pretty well. If every decision you make is based on how much you gain, then it's the wrong decision.
I think it's kind of similar, maybe for young athletes here overseas in Germany, similar to how things have gone in the States with the AAU stuff. I'm an old guy, so I was around when AAU kind of first started. My generation was the ones that where it really first started, and there it was really about showcasing the kids, getting kids scholarships. And it's kind of evolved into such a big business and sneakers and things like that, and showcases and things where you wonder sometimes if it's about the kids anymore. And I see the same thing with agents or because I also coached under 16, under 19 here in Germany, and I also had some really talented kids that got some interest from agents and things like that. And the ones that I had, the agents were very respectful, but I've also heard of it going the other way. And it also seems like, they're getting younger, that they're getting scouted younger. For you, it's 15, the line is 15. For some, it's 14. I saw agents that I know at a under 12 game, and he didn't have a kid there. So I knew the player that he was looking at, but I thought for myself, I didn't even go say hi to him because I thought for myself, that's too young.
Yeah.
But to each his own. Every company has their own identity. They have their own standards. Let's talk a little bit about a rule that came about last year, the FIBA rule concerning agents, or they actually had a couple of rules, which probably shocked a lot of agents. The first one is you can fire your agent at any time. Give them 30 days notice, and you can fire them at any time. Back when my old head days, it was really like you were locked into an agent for 2 years. Like
Yeah.
there was no getting out of it,
Yeah.
right? So me as a consultant for players or a player advocacy kind of guy, I welcome that. I welcome that for the reason that I think by changing the length of time that an agent and a player have that working relationship, you can actually strengthen the player-agent relationship, because the agent knows this guy can leave me at any time, so I need to do my job. I think most agents are credible and they do their job anyway. But maybe there's a little bit of pressure there that if you don't do your job, or if the player doesn't think you're doing your job, that they can get rid of you at any moment. So that brings me to the second part of the rule, where actually the player should be paying for the commission of the agents. I know it's still a relatively new thing, and not everybody is following through on that, and I understand why. I get it. But that's another reason why I thought it would actually also strengthen the bond between player and agent, because that money is not coming from an interest of the team, but from the player. Myself, if I was playing right now, I would never want the team to pay for my agent fee. I would like to pay it. I would pay it for sure. But that's just me. I don't like to feel dependent on anyone or the company or the team.
Yeah.
I was like that as a player as well. What do you think about those two kind of rule changes?
I mean, first of all, the basis on where this comes from is basically the NBA. In the NBA, you can the player pays the agent.
Right.
It's capped by the collective bargaining agreement at 4% from the salary,
right,
that the player pays. So the organizations don't pay anything at all, and also you can fire any agent with a notice of 2 weeks. So the idea comes from there. But the thing is, with exclusive representation in most countries in Europe, and Germany is one of them, there are EU laws. And in Germany, for example, if your company is based in Germany, there's no type of exclusivity in that way that you can sign a client and he's going to stick with you, or he has to stick with you for 2 years.
Right.
Like you can go and fight it in a public court and you will win
but
this case.
Yeah.
Like no agent has a chance to
right.
hold that case up. Personally, I'm a person, I believe in handshakes, and I believe in handshake agreement, because what does it count for in the end? If I'm a player, I want to play at the highest level. I want to make the most amount of money, and if I believe you're the guy and you perform for me, then what do I have to worry about? And on the other side, from the agent view, there's going to be guys down the road who you will lose. You will do an excellent job, and you will lose them for whatever reason. They want to do something different. They believe they could have got 10% more, whatever it is.
Right.
But eventually, if you do your job in a proper way, you will succeed, and this whole rule change is not going to affect you. And I'm not just talking from the BeoBasket perspective. I'm talking from the general perspective. I believe in hard and good work, and eventually that pays off. And when it comes to the commission part, I don't think that's going to hold up down the road. It's an attempt, but there are various ways to go around. And I mean, without going too far into detail, we as an agency, we have a pretty clear idea for our guys, what we're aiming for in the market. So it's pretty simple. The player can pay the amount, but okay, then the commission, it's going to be that amount plus the commission if the player has to pay it. So the player you pay the player more than you thought you will, but down the road it's the same expense.
It's coming back the same.
I don't think I don't see the leverage for clubs, to be honest. I might be wrong, as everybody is, but this is just my 2 cents on it.
I think you know, with every new rule change, there's always some kind of pushback, and there's always some kind of way that teams try to get around things and figure out the loophole in it, and you know, and things like that. And I totally get it. And
I mean, sorry to interrupt you. Take football for a change, because like here in Europe, football is the benchmark for everything.
right.
So unlike in the States, it's the sport number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then everything else comes. And you got the FIFA, the World Organization, which had you had to have a license in order to be an agent and to sign contracts, or you have to be a lawyer. And then it changed to you don't have to have anything at all. And now they're changing it back. And people who are in this business for 25, 30 years, who've done hundreds of deals, all of a sudden have to do a new test just to be authorized to be an agent again. So I think it's a combination of, well, it's a business for every organization. On the other hand, they try to shake out the bad fruits because if somebody really wants it, he's going to sit down and learn what he has to learn for this job. And if I'm a lazy bum and I don't want to do it, then nothing's going to happen. So I believe it's a combination of those two aspects when it comes to those rule changes.
Speaking of bad apples, we all know, I mean, I saw it as a player, I saw it as a coach, I see it all the time, that there are some bad apples, right, as agents. Are you ever at like some kind of event and you see an agent that you think is a bad apple and you just look at him like, this motherfucker here, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like,
hey, I don't want to publicly shame him.
We're not shaming nobody.
Let's just say everybody who knows me in this business knows what I think of this guy, and I think it's literally, he's not just a bad agent, he's a bad human being. That's what I believe, and that's a guy I got into conflict with multiple times, who tried to badmouth me while I was 10 meters away from him, and it was like people were telling me this, and they allowed me to confront him. I don't believe in bad mouthing people, because if I do my job good, it doesn't matter what you do, how you do your job. You can only do it better than me.
Right.
And I as a person, I'm that type of a person. If you are a better agent than me, then it motivates me, or a better scout or whatever. It motivates me to get better, because my ambition is to be the best in whatever I do and nothing else. So I think bad mouthing is just weak character, but bad apples, there are a lot of people around, and bad apples are usually people who have no clue of the market, no clue of the business, or who just work for self-promotion and self-gain, what I said earlier. So
actually, I didn't say this in your intro, but can you tell us what your function is at BeoBasket? And BeoBasket is one of the top agencies in the world right now, with players all over the world, not just here in Europe, but also in the NBA and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your role?
Yeah. So BeoBasket. Everybody likes to brag, but I believe sometimes it comes down to numbers. And to be honest, I don't know the actual number, but I think it's close to 60 clients that we have in the Euroleague alone. We're the agency with the most players out of Europe in the NBA. We have a program with BeoBasket, or Mega Miss, how is it called now, which is playing in the Adriatic League. It's pretty unique. So I think there's a lot of knowledge and know-how within the agency. And my role that I initially came in for was player evaluation, player management, and recruiting. And with a hard focus on the German market in the beginning, and down the road, and it evolved. It evolved through other parts of Europe as well. But this is something that I personally enjoy doing. I mean, everybody wants to represent LeBron James.
Right.
There's only one LeBron James, but I think for me it gives me much more pleasure to find the next 15, 16-year-old kid, go down the road with him. He wins some individual awards, wins a team title, signs his first pro contract, and so on. And I've been through a couple of steps with some of the guys, and that's something that is really, really fulfilling. I can't speak about other people, but for me, this is one of the main reasons I do this job.
Do you have a story about the hardest kind of negotiation or something like that of a player that you actually signed? No, you don't have to give names, but just a a story about a really hard one that you maybe thought you wouldn't get, and at the end you got?
Okay.
You don't have to
Uh,
drop names. We're not
no, no, no,
we're not
I know, I
ESPN. I'm
know.
not looking for sound bites.
Let's just say he's gonna know. He's gonna be that he's the one. All I can say is that's a guy we've been actively chasing for I think 2 or 2.5 years, and all honesty, I can't speak for other people, but I personally have never been chasing somebody for that long, and I really thought I just really like this player as both as a person and a player, and I really believe in him. And well, then it came I think it was summer of 21, where he said, like, he more or less all out of nowhere he calls and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm gonna come with you guys. And he called Dragan Jankowski, was the vice president of the agency who works in the German market with me for most parts, and he called Dragan as well, and Dragan and I were really hyped. It's like, oh, great. And he's like, yeah, I just want to call my agent and let him know, out of respect. And an hour later he calls, he's like, man, sorry, I just can't leave it. I'm like, what? It's literally the first, like, honestly, the first time for me it happened where a player committed and basically decommitted from working with us. And it was pretty frustrating. And at that point I thought, okay, well, this is it. We still stay close and all, because again, like, I like him. And then took another year where he said, okay, yeah, I know I have to make a decision at this time for real. Like, I'm coming with you guys. So, and yeah, he signed, and like, he's with us now, and we're really excited about what's coming down the road with him. But it was a really hard fight, literally the hardest I had. Like,
somehow I think I know who you're talking about, and
I figured.
actually we're not dropping names, but actually I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier. You also mentioned that you believe in handshake deals.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're not signing these players that you get? Because let's say if it's the player I'm thinking about, also had a handshake deal, and I think if he would have been signed to that former agent, he might not have left the way I know him.
Yeah.
That he would have felt a little bit more sense of a responsibility, even though it took a couple of years for you guys to actually go through it. But do you not sign people?
Let me paraphrase it. I believe in handshake agreements, but I also believe in trust. And trust is something that is built through time.
Right.
It's something like, initially when you decide, at least that's why I try to players and then parents, when you try to go with somebody, with an agent, it has to be based on trust. Who do you trust the most to take care of whatever you need to be taken care of? And in the beginning, that's not gonna be there. There's gonna be a basic understanding, but not what I like to call blind trust. And once you reach that point where the player and the agent know this guy, like, I can trust everything that comes out of his mouth, and vice versa, that's where handshake agreements kick in. So, like, again, without naming, and you could ask, I think every guy that I dropped a call in. Every client is gonna tell you the same story, that we signed the one contract and there was never a need to renew it, which you have to do by the regulations. So I think this first agreement is a bit of security in the first moment, as weird as it sounds, but well, you invest time, you invest your network, and as much as you trust somebody, you also don't want to get backstabbed in the first beginning. But once you did the first or the second deal, then everything gets a lot easier once sides see how it's going.
Right. What do you? I mean, okay, BeoBasket is a big agency, and you pretty much have the pick of the litter. You can probably make a lot more choices about who you go after than other ones, other agencies. Have you ever experienced someone who doubt about coming to BeoBasket, but because it's such a big agency, and they thought maybe it would be better for them to be somewhere smaller?
I I can actually tell you that I've had it in my past agency when I was working with Ademola, where we had a player that turned out to be a EuroLeague player that we thought is going to come with us, because at that time we were the agency who had had talented young guys, and the guys who were developing into a high level German product. And that player opted against going with us because he believed you have too many good guys. So he went with another agency. So I believe in most cases, usually the players that wanna come over to us know why they're coming. And I would say the number of players who are leaning against us because of the size of the agency is not that big as one might think. Because where BeoBasket excels, what I like to believe, everybody can believe what they obviously feel themselves, is I believe we excel in getting the best deals for our clients. And I think this 55, 60, whatever it is, clients in the EuroLeague, which is a quarter of all players in the EuroLeague, proves that point. So yeah, there are some guys who definitely are getting more than maybe other people would think they deserve, but it's also it's again about what I said earlier. I believe the network and the knowledge in the agency is at a very high point, and knowing the market is essential. You have to know what other players in the same position are making in order to make a guess on what you want to ask for your player. And if you don't know that, then you're literally just guessing numbers. And everybody can come around and say, I want some X for my player, but some X might be 5 times lower than what you could actually ask for. So I think that's the essential basis of being a good agent, having the right information before speaking to decision makers.
I think that's a very interesting point where you said how that player decided against you because he felt like there was too much competition. How do you handle? I mean, you got 60 EuroLeague guys. You got also other players. How do you juggle that competition in your own company? You're for sure going to have players at the same position, right? How do you kind of know who to push for certain jobs? No, I'm going to push them for something else. But if, let's say, you've got 2 guys with the same talent, how do you decide amongst the company, amongst the agency, amongst the agents, who you push more for certain jobs? Because there is competition. It is like that.
I mean, I think it's natural as a player to think, okay, I'm like, why is this guy getting more, or like, why is he getting this deal and it's not me getting the deal? But I believe in most cases it's sometimes it's also very simple. Sometimes the club just says, this is the guy that I want. So I can tell you, like, from my experience, let me start at the bottom with young players. The way we try to recruit is we try to evaluate what are the 2 top or 3 top talents in the age group, let's say in Germany, and then we go after them. But if there are 3 guys on the same position, then we have to rethink if we really want to go for all 3 guys. So we really try not to stack. And I recently had a situation where 2 players were being offered to me, and those players played in a literally the same position as other guys in the same age group on the same position. And I said, like, you might be better, you might be worse. For all there is, I'm sticking with the guys who trusted me. And when it comes to the pro level, again, I haven't experienced so much this jealousy part, because down the road it comes down to, am I happy with my own deal? And I believe a vast majority of our clients is very happy with their own deal. So yeah, that's I think the best answer I can give you without going too much into corporate detail.
That's good. Like, does your company, does BeoBasket, do you set a premium on native players, or 50 with foreigners and European players in general? How do you guys balance that?
I mean, the roots of the agency, Serbian.
Europe.
Their agency is based in Belgrade, so naturally it started growing from Serbian players, Montenegrin players, and then throughout the region with the ex-Yugoslav countries. Then the American players kicked in. Now we have French, German, Lithuanian, Turkish, basically all over the world. I don't think it comes down to nationality. It comes more down to talent. If somebody's a top talent and we have a shot at getting him and we really want to work with that person, then we're going to go for it. But every country has different regulations. Right. So I wouldn't say I would choose the American over the German. I would rather say I have to compare this American to an actual American and the German to a German. Or maybe the German if we're talking about Spain, I can compare the German to a French or Italian player because they're competing there for the same spot. Right. But I don't think nationality plays so much of a big role, not just for us, but for majority of the big agencies, I would say.
Let's switch it up a little bit. Because your agency is such a big one, I'm sure you probably don't get a whole lot of cold calls or cold emails from players. But if you do, what is something that you could a piece of advice you could give to a player who doesn't have an agent, would like an agent, and sends out a cold email, just, hey, my name is Sean and I'm a player and I would like you to represent me. Is there anything that a player can do that might jump out at you that makes you think, okay, maybe I'll investigate this player a little bit more?
So I think it's not just me. I know from talks with other colleagues in the business, everybody gets a ton of those emails. Yeah. And I think the biggest mistake that players or people coming out of college do is they send the same email to
the copy and paste.
And they send it on social media, be it Facebook, be it LinkedIn, be it Instagram. I think that's the biggest mistake, because honestly, if you don't even have the time to write, hey, Milan, or whatever, I'm not going to read your profile because, well, I don't have the time either then. So I think my best advice would be, first of all, don't write everybody, because people speak with each other and that's going to eventually hurt your reputation. But rather try to speak with people who have some experience. Maybe you know people who are already in this business who can give you some guidance, maybe people like you in this moment, and then go from there. Try to approach the people in a personal way and make your case, because eventually you don't need to post me your highlights, you don't need to post me where you played or whatever, because this is information I can get within 10 seconds of entering into Google and Synergy. So it's a presentation. Try to treat it like a job interview. You want to get a job at I don't know, a bank. You're not just gonna walk in and throw your CV at the table as well. So that's how you have to treat it. And I'm not trying to bring too much value to agents and agencies. I just believe in mutual respect. And the biggest issue that I know from other agents also, they feel disrespected by players, because they say, okay, he wants my network, he wants my time, but down the road he's going to switch me for somebody else who's going to give him something better. So I opt not to invest time in that person.
Is it difficult for an agent, whether you work at BeoBasket or a smaller agency, to tell players no? Like maybe for one reason or another.
It is like for me personally, I can always speak about my own experience. Is when somebody has a right approach and is very respectful, thoughtful, and you see he's put a lot of heart in it, but you just see, this is not for me. Like, I can't help you. It's hard to say no, because down the road you want this person to succeed, you want to try to help him. And what I try to do then, I try to connect him with some people, and like, okay, try to call this person or that person, maybe they can help you. But for me in particular, the biggest issue is just BeoBasket is a big agency, and we're shooting for NBA, Euroleague, and high Eurocup.
Yep.
Like we usually don't have rookies, and the rookies we go with are, for whatever reason, exceptional, or we believe they're exceptional for whatever reason.
Speaking of exceptional players, everybody knows that there's great players, but there's some asshole players, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with a very talented player that is just an asshole?
I don't.
Like how do you deal with that?
I don't. For me, it's I invest a lot of time and heart in this, and I try to let the client and his family know about that, and I believe they do. And if I think the person or the player has not the basic human values that I have, I don't want to work with that person, because eventually I try to treat this business as a 24/7. So if it's 2 in the night and you have an issue, you can call me, and everybody knows you can call me. Like, even if I'm asleep, I will pick up. But I want to do that for the right people. I don't want to do that to, as you said, an asshole who's gonna badmouth me behind my back, and 5 seconds later he's gonna jump ship if something is not the way he wants it. Because eventually, I also don't believe that those people will succeed. I think the guys who are at the highest level have a basic understanding on human relations and are obviously exceptionally talented. And even those guys who are in the EuroLeague, who are maybe very outspoken, that people say, oh, they're arrogant or they might be assholes. When you meet them, usually the vast majority of them is actually very nice. It's just part of their character and their appearance.
Right. Have you had a lot of players where when you started to dig into their background, and I'm sure you do your own investigation, things like that, a really talented player, but then you decide to back off because, like you said, he doesn't share your common values, or you realize this one might be trouble? Like, have you had a couple of instances like that where you really backed off a player?
I mean, usually apart from the sports side, whatever I see, I try to do research. I talk to coaches who work with them. I try to, if I know teammates, I talk to the teammates or whatsoever to try to get a feeling on how the character is. And for me, this first talk is essential. And I always like to say I'm old school, and I grew up with never do business with somebody whom you haven't shaked the hand of, if it makes sense.
Right.
So I have to shake your hand and look you in the eye, and if I see common ground there, then we can move on, and if I don't, then I don't. It doesn't matter how talented you are. That's just my approach to this business, because again, I value my time too much to waste it on people who are not worth it. And I prefer dealing with a player who's maybe not as talented, who will never reach those heights, but it's just a great and respectful individual guy. Yeah, who just appreciates people, not just me, but people in general.
So I do my consulting with players, and one thing that always comes up is that I tell them a lot is, just because an agent is good for one person, one player, doesn't mean he's going to be good for you.
Exactly.
And one of the examples that I give is that for me, you only really know if you have a good agent. Hopefully you've established some kind of relationship, but you really only know if one of three, or if three things happen. The first is something, the most normal thing in the world. They got to get you a job. But that's the minimum what every agent tries to do, right? Because they don't get paid if they don't get you a job. So that's the minimum. But the other two are negative things. So if you get hurt or if you get fired, that's when you know, is this agent behind me, or is this agent working for the club?
Exactly.
Those are two instances. For me, if you get fired, if a player gets fired, usually a good agent will know it beforehand. He has a good relationship with the coach or the team. They kind of see it coming. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
no question.
In that case, how do you approach telling your player, hey, it's getting hot for you right now?
I mean, I've had the luck that I didn't have so many times a situation where a player was getting fired, to be honest. I've had a situation with a player where it just wasn't going as expected for various reasons, coaches changes and whatsoever. We tried to get the player out, and just the club didn't want to. And then sometimes you're also at a point where you just have no leverage. You have to deal with the situation or the cards you have been dealt with. What you said is very essential. I really believe if you have a player at whatever organization as an agent, you have to know what's up. First of all, you have to watch the games of the player. It's very easy to look at the stat sheet and hype your player and tell them, oh, yeah, you dropped 25. Yeah, but your team lost by 17 and you dropped 25, but your opponent dropped 35 on you, means minus 10 directly through you. So I like my approach is I try to watch all of the games of my guys that I take care of, and I try to speak with them, and I'm dead honest with them. When I believe they played bad, then I'm telling them, hey, you played shit. And through time, this is something, what I hope at least, this is something they respect, because down the road we're in the same boat. You said the job of an agent is to get the player a job. Yes, it is, but I also believe in career planning. So it's not just one, or usually it's not a one-time deal.
Good point.
So I can place you in whatever, Iceland, Austria, Sweden, Finland, whatever it is. But what's the idea afterwards? Right. So, okay, you ball out, you're the MVP, everything is more or less easy. But what happens if you don't perform? Where do we go there? So I believe in looking at both sides and evaluating also both sides to let the player know, okay, listen, if you go there and this works, best case this happens, worst case this happens, and then we go from there. Because down the road, I also believe it's not just about getting a job, it's about getting the right job.
Good point.
And especially with you dealing with obviously with a lot of American players, and a lot of them I assume are also rookies. A rookie deal is definitely the most hard one, because most players, with no offense to anybody, don't know anything about Europe. I'm not even talking about basketball. I'm talking more about culture and lifestyle. So they come and they're shocked about everything. So it's they have to adapt, they have to adjust, they have to understand, and they have to be patient. But all of that has to already happen before actually coming to the job. So I believe that's a big part of the agent job to educate, especially a young player. And that's not just a rookie out of college. That's also a young player here in Europe that is coming towards the pro ranks. Educate on what is coming, what you're going to expect in the upcoming years. Because playing at a junior level, playing in college, is not the same as playing in the pros. And you can come into a situation, if we talk about, well, let's say Germany, okay? Germany is a pretty straightforward country. There are laws. The clubs are not going to do shady stuff with you, because they will have no chance in court. But there are other countries where you can go to, without bad-mouthing now anybody, but where you can go into and your salary is going to be late. They're going to give you a shitty apartment. They're just not going to give you food or whatever is in the contract agreement. Just going to be like, okay, sue me. And this is again, I think that's a much bigger part of an agent job that both players and agents tend to forget when deciding for an agent. Is my agent actually going to take care of the stuff? Because the contractual stuff and getting the job is 10% of the job at most. 90%, because we're talking about a period. If we're talking best case scenario, you sign in the summer and you stick with the team throughout the whole year. Okay, cool. What are you doing the rest of the time as an agent with your player? So that's something that's, I think, not, well, a lot of people don't value enough. And I think it should be valued way more than it actually is.
That's right. That's definitely right. You made an interesting point where you said, like, especially also with me, like I deal with a lot of rookies or guys who never have gap years, could be, or they just have no experience over here. So I try to educate them on what's coming, what you have to deal with before. And that's really important, because, you know, you get some guys over here that have no clue, and they get sent home right away because they're not able to adapt. And that's the word that I use the most. Like, you have to, don't come over here thinking, not even McDonald's is the same over here than back home. So you can't expect the basketball to be the same. You can't expect the lifestyle to be the same. And if you're not able to adapt, you're going to be home quicker than you can, your head will spin and you'll be home.
Exactly.
You know, that brings me to another thing is, to a lot of mostly Americans. I have some Europeans, but it's different when I talk to Europeans. I have this thing, and if you're an American agent and you're tuning in right now, you might be a little bit upset with me, but agents have they have so an American guy calls you up and says, "Hey, I got a player." Not necessarily you, but another European agent says, "Hey, I got a player. Can you look for a thing? You split the commission, whatever." Nothing against that. That's okay. My problem is that if I'm an American, I don't have G League or NBA aspirations, or I'm not good enough for G League or something like that. Why would I have an American agent call you or some other European guy that's not flying overseas to have coffee with a GM, that's not coming to my games, that's not putting the work in? I do that because then if an agent in his roster that is exactly like this guy that I'm going to collect half the commission for, who am I pushing?
Exactly.
So that's kind of what I go through with players, that they should maybe possibly look more towards having a agent based there where you would like to go, in this case in Europe. Do you find that ships are maybe on their way out as far as that goes?
So what I can tell you about what you said with the American agents, I think most bigger American agents and agencies have people who they work fully exclusively with overseas, or they have people who they work for particular regions exclusively with. With us, the same goes vice versa. We have our top client in the agency is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, and obviously Nikola being in Denver 8 hours behind, if things come up, how is somebody from Serbia going to handle that business?
Right.
So we work with Excel, which is obviously also a very big agency in the US. And so those guys are more or less in the same time zone and they can take care of stuff. On the other hand, the American players of Excel, we take care exclusively in Europe because we are here, and something happens. It happens, I don't know, let's say it's 10 a.m. in Europe, that's 4 a.m. on the East Coast. So, and if it's something urgent that needs to be handled, you need a guy there. So that's something I wish I could give you a better answer, but I will never understand why American players stick with US agents or North American agents. And East Coast I even somehow understand, West Coast I don't, not at all. And even less I understand European players who are going to sign with American agents and they will never be NBA players. I simply don't understand the reason behind it, because that guy is not in the market. He's not going to come visit you for various reasons, time, money, whatever it is, doesn't matter. What do you need an agent then for? So is it just, again, we're coming back to the essential question. What do you want from your agent? Again, my interpretation is career planning and handling of everything. Some other guys are just taking care of getting people jobs. So it's definitely something that's caught my attention as well as yours.
Okay. We're running low on time, and I got a couple of things that I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to go a little bit more personal then. What's the best part of your job?
Oh, okay. Being in sports and traveling, I would say.
You like to travel?
I do. Sometimes I get, I wouldn't say frustrated, but it gets tiring. When you're on the road for 11, 12 days and you switch hotels. I'm a guy, I like to go to all youth European championships. So that's 6 in 6 weeks. Going from one country to another and just going home to change stuff and leaving again.
Right.
That is a bit exhausting, but it's something I personally eventually enjoy. It's still nice, but I would say like the people interaction, like impacting people's lives and being in sports, that's really a great thing.
So then vice versa, what's the worst? And I'll tell you something. People often ask me, I talk to a lot of players and they ask me, why are you not an agent? And I've never in my life thought for a second to be an agent, because I think this is a nightmare situation, but I don't want to be responsible for a guy with 2 kids and I can't get that guy a job.
Exactly.
Like, then that's a pressure that I don't want to deal with.
That's
like to be
something that's
outside
in the head. You're completely right. That's definitely a big part that is spooking somewhere behind. But I personally try to block that out, because if you don't block it out, you can't do your job in a proper way. Like a player, you played yourself. When you have issues, you have to leave your issues at home once you step on the court, because then it's no excuse time. So yeah, I think for me personally, it's bad people and liars. That's more of a generally bad thing in life,
Right.
rather than in this job. I think that happens to everybody, be it in this business or not.
Okay, last thing, I'm going to throw some either a word or a phrase at you, and you tell me what the first thing that pops into your head is. Okay.
Okay.
Euroleague.
Final Four.
Easy credit basketball Bundesliga.
Underachieving.
Really?
Yes.
You mean that in the sense of the teams that are playing Euroleague that are underachieving, or are you talking about the status of the league?
No, I think there's so much more potential in Germany as a basketball country, and I believe I'm a pretty loud advocate against decisions that are being made. I think the way the business is being held is just pure finance. They don't understand sports, and I think generally the league has so much more potential than it's actually showing. I mean, Germany is a country of 82 million people. There's so many cultures, so many mixed marriages. It's a talented country after all, in various ways, and the product down the road. I mean, I'm happy about the team winning bronze in the summer, but I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more to see.
While I got you, let me ask you this, because one of my best friends is a Bundesliga assistant coach, and we talk all the time. So I know a lot of background stuff. I know a lot of thoughts, what he has, or his team, or other, and I have a couple other friends that are still coaching in the BBL. And one thing that's been common is that, especially since COVID, the level of players is maybe not what it was pre-COVID.
I agree.
How do you think the league or teams, how do you think they get that level back?
Scouting, mostly, I would say. I think it's a combination of scouting and finance. Germany,
of course, teams definitely have less money than they did before COVID.
And
that's clear.
And Germany is what we spoke about earlier. Germany is a country that is transparent with finances, with contracts, and there's no shady down the table payments being done as in other countries. So if, let's say, just as an example, we have Bayern Munich in the Euroleague, and Bayern Munich wants to get a player. That player for Bayern Munich costs, let's say, 600,000 euros. They can play max, just for the example. But those 600 are eventually 3-4 million euros because of taxes. And in some other countries, maybe if this guy is American and he goes to Maccabi, they can pay him $1 million straight, because they don't pay taxes in the first 3 years for American players. Yeah. So it's I think Germany as a league has a competitive disadvantage when it comes to taxes.
That's true.
And that's true. Which is okay. But I think you have to invest more in scouting. You have to invest more in youth, and you shouldn't be so afraid to make maybe some risky decisions. Like, we look at Ulm right now. They're trying, or Braunschweig, teams who are trying getting young guys in, or for example, Braunschweig is something that I respect what they're doing, getting in guys who are maybe not in the first row, but hey, giving them exposure and pushing them. And if we're talking about you don't have money, well, you can still gamble on talented guys.
Right.
Eventually, if you have only 3,000 or 4,000 euros for a player, it's always going to be a gamble. Yeah. You're not going to get Mike James for that money anyway. So.
Probably not. Okay, last two. Professional goal.
Say again, sorry?
Your professional goal. Your goal for your job.
Oh God, saying it public is gonna sound so cocky, but
No.
I always strived to be the best in what I do. That's something, that's my motto. So
okay, best player in Europe right now.
damn. Let me. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus. I would maybe say Eddie Tavares.
Really?
Yeah, I think the impact he's having, and like big men are not getting enough respect, but the impact he's having on both
Good
ends is
answer,
amazing.
man. That's a really good. And actually, if I think about it, like what you said, the impact he has for Real Madrid is pretty big.
Yeah, and I mean, you have obviously there's so many great guys in Europe, and especially at that
Mhm.
high Euroleague
Yeah,
level, you can at least name one guy in every team that can
yeah,
be considered a top, let's say, 10 or 15 guy in the league.
right.
At most teams, like even at Alba Berlin, you have somebody like Luke Sigma, who is an amazing
Right.
player. So I think yeah, Eddie Tavares is somebody defensively and offensively, like just permanent mismatch for everybody.
Hmm.
And you don't have so many players like that in the league, I believe.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. All right, man. That's it. You hit the shot at the buzzer for me, man. That's it. That's all I got for you. Actually, I got a lot more questions, but I'm gonna let that go. I'll ask you those when I meet you in Berlin one day, and I'll get
Anytime.
those out at you. I really appreciate you coming on and maybe also dispelling some myths about agents, and it also helped me for what I do. You know, consulting to players. That
Yeah.
is a really good thing for you to come on tonight for me as well. So I appreciate you, man. And oh wait, before I get off. Thank you, man. I, you know what I'm talking about. I reached out
Yeah.
to you. I do this consulting thing, and there comes sometimes a time when I don't know anymore, or I'm I've come to my limit. And usually it's an emergency situation, and I hit you up in an emergency situation for one of my clients where I was like, okay, I don't know how to get this done. Let me ask somebody who does. I hit you up. You hit me right back. You were like, okay, let's do it. Let's give me some information. Give me some background stuff. And you really, really helped out. And this player she's a woman. She was making
Yeah. I love
800 a
money.
month. You know, right? You didn't have to do that, but you did, and I appreciate it. We got her out of that situation. She came to Germany after
Oh,
that, and
nice.
she had a good season in Germany after she left there. But you really helped me out where I was kind of like at my end, and I really, really appreciate you for that. And that's something I think we should do more for each other in the basketball
I
community. But
agree.
it's not typical. So I just want to say thank you for that, man, and I
Anytime.
appreciate it. And yeah, man, get on out of here. Go watch your players in the EuroLeague tonight,
Will do.
and I'll be in touch, man. I appreciate you.
Definitely. Sean, thanks for having me. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your next interview. And I will talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, Sean.
Teammates, that was a good one. I mean, all my interviews are good. The people I interview are good people. So I might not be the best interviewer, but the people that I interview are good. I appreciate all of you who are still tuned in. And if you're here for 1 second or for the whole 1 hour and 7 minutes now, I appreciate you. I actually have another interview coming up in less than an hour now. So maybe you want to check back and get some more information. And that's what this is all about, passing on valuable information that will help someone. Yeah. Let me take a break and get a drink or something like that, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. Thank you for tuning in.